Welcome to Halloween 2011. This is Shane R. Monroe, the host of Passenger Seat Radio. Over the next 90 minutes, we're going to take you on 5 tales of the macabre. 5 stories guaranteed to chill your bones, or at least make you laugh as the end comes near. First, I will tell you of all of my great movie recommendations, little-known tales of terror every home should see during Halloween. Then I will tell you of my experience working in a real professional haunted house. I'll tell you who gets scared and who runs. Next, I'll tell you of a rather tragic tale of a young boy dressed as his favorite superhero, losing a costume contest to a lame caveman kid. Then I'll tell you a story of Ouija boards, flying pewter pieces, icy cold to the touch. Then I'll finish the story with my real live demon encounter. It's all coming up right here on the Halloween edition of Passenger Seat Radio.
Good morning, everybody. This is a great mix. The DMC remix of Thriller, I love it. You are listening to Passenger Seat Radio. Sorry, I gotta listen to this for just a second. One of those good Halloween songs. Alright, that's enough, Michael. The late, more or less great Michael Jackson. Let's say he was great when he made Thriller. Less great towards the end, I guess, right? Good morning, this is Shane R. Monroe. You're in the passenger seat with me right here, Passenger Seat Radio. It is, what the hell is the date anyway? It's Monday before Halloween. Yes, that should give you an idea what the date is, right? Let me break out Mr. Blackberry so I can properly date stamp the show. Jesus Christ, I have like 7 billion things running on here. Yes, it's October 26th. Yes, the week before Halloween. Oh my. 6:30, on my way to work. You know the drill. Passenger Seat Radio, after all. Well, it is Halloween week, and I don't know if I'll be recording another show this week, so I want to share with you a couple of my favorites. A couple of my little favorite Halloween movie gems. Because I love Halloween. I'm going to be honest with you. Halloween's my favorite holiday. And I'll tell you why. First of all, you can do weird, creepy shit, and no one locks you up for it. Literally, you can pretty much get away with anything at Halloween, and everybody tolerates it. It's the greatest. You can actually go to work in blood-soaked clothes carrying a knife, and nobody even looks twice at you. How cool is that? I mean, that's just, I don't know. To me, that's cool. I like the concept of there being a holiday around horror. It's a great thing. And of course, you know, you've got people that just totally wig out about Halloween, and it's Satan's holiday, and you're encouraging evil, and horrible things happen on Halloween. We should just get rid of Halloween. You know, it's a pagan holiday, blah, blah, blah. Whatever. All right, Halloween's fun. You get to get scared. You go through some haunted houses. You get to go around and get candy. It's a win-win for everybody. You don't want to participate, don't participate. It's just like Christmas. Jewish, whatever, you don't want to participate in Christmas, you're good. You know, you don't want to play on Halloween, you don't want to dress up in a costume, fine, whatever. You're good. But hey, don't ruin it for the rest of us. So, I want to share with you a couple of films that I would recommend to watch for Halloween. Now, for me, Halloween's usually about being scared. Now, there's a couple of areas you could diversify on that, but let's be honest. Halloween's for getting the Jesus scared out of you, whether it's in a haunted house, watching a scary movie, whatever. So, movies. Let me tell you about some movies. First of all, I just finished, and this is sort of a mini review for this film as well. A movie just came out called Frayed. Not like afraid of the dark, but frayed as in the end of a rope coming apart. It's out now. It's in general release. I talked about it on a previous show, remember? They'd had a bunch of trouble getting it released, and it was shot in my old home state of Washington. Good movie, okay? I got a chance to finally finish it. And I will tell you straight up, there's a few parts of this, there's a few things in this movie that must be experienced. First of all, the opening scene is one of the most disturbing things I've ever seen. As a parent, just in general. I mean, I don't see how anybody can watch the opening scene of this and not be disturbed by what you see. I don't want to ruin it. Let's just say that it's very disturbing. And it sets a tone for the rest of the film. Now, there are, there's plenty of scares, there's plenty of killings going on, but this movie's more about what you don't see than what you do see. And the folks that made it like to call it the thinking man's horror movie. And I'll be honest with you, you may end up this movie having some questions, especially if you don't watch it all in one shot. I broke it up into two settings. And that wasn't the right way to go. You got to watch this one from top to bottom. But anyway, so the movie has a lot of twists, which I love. I love plot twists. Sometimes it's fun just to have, here's a bad guy. He kills people. He gets his in the end. It's done. Sometimes that's fun too. But I do like movies that make you think, that make you ask questions, that leave something open to interpretation. Frayed definitely gives you that quality. So if you get an opportunity, the folks that made the film were kind enough to send me a copy, signed copy. Thank you very much, by the way, you guys. But the movie will definitely keep you on your toes. You got to pay attention. This isn't what I would call a background movie. You actually have to watch it. There's some movies you can get away with, putting in the background and doing something else, playing DS or whatever. You can't really do that with this film. You got to pay attention. And what's really nice about this movie, too, is if you watch close enough, you will see the hints and the clues that lead you into the plot twist, which is nice. Some movies don't even give you that. They just throw this big plot twist at the end, and you're going, what? Get out of here. This one, it's like, oh, okay, I got you. I see where that was going. And now, at the end, everything ties itself up, which is good. It's not one of those movies that you get to the end and you're going, what the hell just happened? You've seen those, right? So Frayed, that's a modern movie that just, like I said, just came out. A few of the movies I'm going to talk about are old, and I know some people have problems with older films. So I wanted to offer a couple of newer films as well as some of my old-time favorite standbys. Next up, I want to bring up a fairly modern film. The film is called Scream. It's a Wes Craven film. Of course, most of you have probably already seen it. Scream sort of reinvented the horror genre after it went through a very long hiatus. It's very gory. We saw it in a drive-in, in the dark, of course, and it was drizzling a little bit outside, and the whole movie just freaked us out. That's another movie where you want to turn the lights off and just kind of sit back and enjoy the ambiance. But Scream is fairly popular, so you've probably seen that one. But I recommend a revisitation for your Halloween scares. Next one up I want to recommend is one you're never going to probably find, which is really sad. But maybe you can find it at one of your local not retailers, but like your rental places, like a mom and pop rental places tend to keep these sort of older films around. It's a 1986 film called Witchboard. And it deals, of course, with a Ouija board and demonic possession. Now, maybe you've seen Paranormal Activity. It's at the theaters. It's like Trump Saw 6 at the theater. Little low-budget indie film about basically the same idea, demonic possession. And while I saw Paranormal Activity, and I thought it was okay, the end of it, sort of made up for the rest of the movie. But if you want to see something that's a little more mainstream, a little more traditional horror flick, Witchboard is the definitive movie for dealing with demonic possession like that. Not saying that something like The Exorcist isn't perfect, but that's like about exorcisms, This doesn't have to do with that. This is leading up to being possessed. And it's good. It's really good. It's a little old. And if you see the trailer on YouTube, I'm sorry, the trailer on YouTube really sucks. It's really cheesy. But it's a good movie. It's a good movie if you want to learn all about Ouija boards and learn all about how you shouldn't be using the damn things to begin with. So, Witch Board is definitely on the top of my list for Halloween frights. I did see the recent movie Trick or Treat. It's the one that has that chick from True Blood in it. She has a very small part. This is a pretty good movie. It's kind of like Cat's Eye. Remember Stephen King's Cat's Eye, where it was like 4 stories, and they were all kind of tied together by the cat? These are 4 stories that are kind of all tied together the same way. Not through a single character type thread, but they're all together. Things that happen in one end up happening in another from a different camera angle, from a different perspective. And it's pretty good. It's a pretty decent film. It's hard to find good horror these days, but this is pretty good. Violent, scary, plot twists. I liked it. I liked Trick or Treat. I recommend that. That's a good rental. You can get your hands on it. Sorry. Once again, I'm fighting some sort of a head cold or a chest cold these days. I don't know what the hell my kid brings home from daycare, but he brings home the Black Plague like every single week, and I just don't have the immune system, I guess, to stop it. I take more vitamins or something. Anyway, next up is a movie that. Well, let's see. Let's do some more traditional stuff. If you have not seen The Shining with Jack Nicholson, this is an old 70s movie. Okay, I get it. You'll have to give the large, wide collars and some of the street clothes a break, because it is from the 70s. But there's not a whole lot that dates this movie. That's the good part. The film deals with a guy, a writer, Jack Nicholson, who brings his wife and his kid up to this creepy-ass hotel in the middle of Colorado during the wintertime, and the wintertime seals this hotel in. It's up on top of this big mountain, and during the wintertime, they can't run the hotel. It costs too much to keep the roads open. So they mothball the hotel for the entire winter, and they hire some guy or his family to go up to this place and just stay there over the winter, and kind of keep the boiler running and do basic maintenance to keep the hotel good. And it turns out being a case of cabin fever. At least that's what you think. And what ends up happening, well, I don't want to ruin it for you, but let's just say Jack Nicholson does what Jack Nicholson does best. He goes a little crazy. So, it's scary. This is a scary movie. This is a movie that today still freaks me out. The music at the beginning still freaks me out. So check that out. The Shining is readily available. Blu-ray, DVD, VHS, tattooed on my ass. You can get The Shining anywhere. It's a very prolific movie. You can find it everywhere and anywhere. So if you have not seen it, don't let the fact that it's from the 70s freak you out. This is a good movie and it's worth watching. If you've read the book, it's pretty different from the book, all right? But it doesn't make it a bad movie. Watch it as if it was a different telling of The Shining, okay? And you'll be good. Besides, it got Scatman Crothers in it. The voice of Hong Kong Phooey. My throat's all messed up. I do a great Scatman Crothers, but I can't do it with my throat all thrashed. Sorry. I meant to make that better, but, what can I do? Anyway, so, The Shining, excellent, highly recommended for horror. Next up, let me come up with something that's a little older. If you haven't seen The Lost Boys, not the new one, not Lost Boys the Tribe, but the original Lost Boys with Kiefer Sutherland and Jason, what's his name? Not Jason Bateman, that's the other kid. Jason Patric, yeah. That's a fun movie. It's a fun movie. It's got Corey Haim, Corey Feldman. It's kind of an 80s period piece, but it's good. It's scary. It's got good scary parts in it. And it's a good vampire movie. A lot of people are getting into vampires these days thanks to like True Blood and what's that other one? Twilight. So everyone's getting into vampire movies these days. I'd say Lost Boys is amongst the better of the vampire movies you're going to subject yourself to. If you're looking for vampirism with a little twist, a little bit of fun involved, I highly recommend you check out Eddie Murphy's Vampire in Brooklyn. It actually has moments of genuine terror, but it's also funny as hell. So check that one out, too, if you're looking for a sort of a different slant on vampire movies. Of course, one of my all-time favorite vampire movies, if you can get a hold of it, is damn it. I thought the light was going to change, and it didn't. One of my favorite vampire movies of all time, still, is the old Chris Sarandon film, Fright Night. There are two of them, and if you can get both of them, that's fine. But, don't watch the second one without watching the first one, because they're tied together. But that is all by far one of my favorite vampire films is Fright Night. And I think anybody who was raised in that era who's seen Fright Night will agree with me. That's one of the vampire movies you don't want to miss. Now remember, vampire movies didn't used to be 90210 with fangs, okay? Vampire movies used to be scary horror fest kind of movies. So, keep that in mind. If you're a Twilight fan, you may not like some of the vampire movies I'm recommending to you. Let's see. Vampire movies. Vamp. Good luck finding a copy of it. But if you can, the movie Vamp is insanely good. It's funny. It's scary. It's bloody. It's got a great story. If you can get a hold of it, try to find it. Vamp. V-A-M-P. It's got Grace Jones in it. And if you think that that's totally screwed up, it is. Good stuff. Check that out. Let's see, what other movies just scared the bejesus out of me? A pretty decent movie, sort of along the lines of demons and whatnot. Constantine, Keanu Reeves. It's fairly new. You can get it on any format you want. It's readily available. That's pretty good. That's got some pretty decent scary parts. Of course, we do have some of the old fallbacks. The Exorcist. I definitely recommend, if you haven't seen The Exorcist, to check that out. I know the beginning of it takes forever. I'm sorry. Just sit through it. It makes no sense. It doesn't really even need to be in the movie. But when Linda Blair is like masturbating with this crucifix and there's blood going all over the place, you'll understand what this movie's all about. So you'll want to check that out. Along with that, of course, I have to recommend the original Carrie. The movie Carrie with Laurie Piper and Sissy Spacek. I know, you're thinking, whoa, Sissy Spacek was in a horror movie? Yeah. There's a whole cast of people in this movie you're going to know. It's insane. William Katt's in this movie. It's not John Travolta, it's that other guy. Anyway, there's tons of famous people in the original Carrie. And it's kind of fun looking back and seeing them as they're just barely out of high school. But there have been sequels and remakes of Carrie out the ass. Do yourself a favor. I know it's in the 70s. Bear with me. Go out and get the original Carrie with Sissy Spacek, okay? This is a fantastic film. It's from Stephen King. The book was. I don't remember if he had anything to do with the movie, but it's so good he probably did. But this movie is about this religious nut who's raising her daughter, under the strong arm of the Bible. And it turns out that her daughter has some psychic abilities. And, of course, she thinks it's from Satan and blah, blah, blah. And the girl is so sheltered that even the onset of her first period freaks her out. You actually get to see this. She just snaps because she's, bleeding and she doesn't know why. It's very cruel. The girls who listen to the show will understand just how horrible that whole scene is in that. But anyway, it all turns... You know the story of Carrie for the most part, right? They make a plan to get her to go to the prom, and they dump pig blood all over. You've seen it spoofed and lampooned a million times. But you have to see the actual movie. Do yourself a favor. It's good stuff. Maybe it is John Travolta that's in that. I always forget. I'll have to look that one up. Anyway, so those are a couple of good ones. The other one I have to recommend that's older, just came out with a new re-release on Blu-ray. The original Children of the Corn. Don't watch any of the new ones. Don't watch the remakes. Don't watch any of that crap. Just watch the original Children of the Corn. It's got Linda Hamilton in it from The Terminator. I'll tell you, this movie freaked the living crap out of me. Especially the opening scene. Again, a lot of these older movies are not slash fest porn or torture porn. There's plenty of that to choose from now. These are just genuinely scary movies. A lot of them are scary because it's like, you know, somewhere in the United States this is probably happening. I can go on and on about great horror movies, and I could run through my movie nook right now and read you off. Well, I couldn't now because I'm in the parking garage, but I could read you off tons and tons of great horror movies. But there are some main staples that you got to get through, and I've named a few of them for you today. So I hope that gives you enough of an arsenal to go out and try to find something new for your Halloween scares, instead of watching Hostel again. Hey, listen, if you want to watch a movie by the guy that did Hostel, Eli Roth, he did a little almost independent film before Hostel. This is what actually got him the money and the prestige to do Hostel. There's a movie called Cabin Fever. And I'll be honest, this movie was a good time, Cabin Fever. Had all the elements of a good movie. Not so much a great horror movie, but it's a scary movie. It's one of those ones where it's like, God, this shit could actually happen. And that's creepy. I mean, that alone makes it weirded out. Another obscure one that I think that a lot of you would have a good time with. I'm a big Wes Craven fan. Obviously, if you've never seen the original Nightmare on Elm Street, the very first one, Heather Langenkamp, Robert Englund, for God's sakes, before you watch the Abomination remake that's coming out, go back and watch the original, because the original one is horror cinema art, and it's damn scary, it's damn creepy, and it'll make you appreciate how bad these modern remakes really are when you watch the original Nightmare on Elm Street. But another obscure one, if you can lay your hands on it, is called Deadly Friend. And Deadly Friend has Matthew, what the hell's his last name? He was from Little House on the Prairie, if you can buy into that. But he's this brilliant kid who builds this robot, a total robot. And he moves to this new town to be closer to this university. And he hooks up with this really cute chick next door, Kirsty Swanson, for those of you who are fans of the original Buffy, not the Sarah Michelle Gellar one. But the original Kirsty Swanson, she is the hot girl next door. Anyway, let's just say that she's got an abusive father, the kid's into neurosurgery, he's got a robot brain. You can kind of put the pieces together. It's pretty good. It's got kind of a goofy ending, but, you know, overall, the movie is the sum of its parts. It's pretty good. All right, gang, listen, that's your Halloween primer for this year. This should give you some movies to start off with. I may record again later this week, so you might get an extra show out of me. But I just wanted to share with you. Some people wanted to talk about that. If you have not gone back and heard my own story of demon visiting me in my home, at least I'm assuming it was a demon. I have no proof. But in one of my previous shows, I talk about it. I'm sure someone will reference the episode number that you could go pick it up. Yeah, it still creeps me out even talking about it, to be honest with you. So I had my own. For those of you who saw Paranormal Activity, when she's talking to that the psychic guy, the guy at the beginning, and she's telling him about the things that she encountered as a kid. That's kind of what I encountered. It's almost creepy, like they listened to my show and, like, took pieces of it. So, anyway, check it out. I got to get out of here. I got to get to work.
Johnny Rossville, your bow and play your fiddle hard.
Yeah.
Opens in Georgia and the devil music hard.
That's right.
If you win, you get this shiny fiddle made of
Fiddle.
gold. But if you lose, the devil gets your soul.
It's almost like hee-haw rap, right? He pulled the bow across the strings and made an evil hiss. I love it. Something like this. Isn't that great? Redneck rap. All right. I could listen to this all day. All right, good morning, everybody. This is Shane R. Monroe here with me, Passenger Seat Radio. That, of course, Charlie Daniels Band, Devil Went Down to Georgia. Which is funny because, like, that song became super, super popular. And those guys have been around before and after that song was popular, and, like, nothing else of theirs took off. That was it. Somehow, and I don't remember, I think it might have been on a real popular movie soundtrack. I think that's how it, like, popped into the top 40. But if I do remember right, it did hit the top 40. So I find that fascinating that redneck rap could somehow enter the top 40. Well, good morning. It's Thursday. It's the 29th of October. Halloween is just around the corner. And Halloween's on a weekend this year, which usually means to me that my car will have egg crap all over it in the morning. There's something about Halloween on the weekend that all the little shit stains come out and TP and egg and do all the other nasty crap. But hey, it's Halloween, so I got the coolest damn thing ever a couple of Halloweens back, and my wife absolutely hates it, which means, of course, that it's good. It's a head in a ball, sort of like Haunted Mansion, you know, the chick with her head in the ball, and, you know, it's been done a million times, but anyway, so there's a head in the ball that sits on a table, and you can take a remote control microphone, a wireless microphone, and actually, like, speak through the head. And you don't even have to be in the same room. You can be, like, around the corner so someone can't see you, and you can actually talk through the head. It's absolutely fantastic. It costs a fortune, as I remember, but it's worth every penny. So we're going to set it up, like, in the window or something so that, you know, we can greet the kids at the door for Halloween. That's going to be awesome. I love that. So, yeah, I actually, the wife let me buy some Halloween stuff this year, which is really cool because, you know, Halloween is not her holiday. My kids and I love Halloween. Halloween is like our thing. But the wife, you know, she's the Christmas person. She likes all the happy, scrappy, happy hero pup crap that you get at Christmas time. So, you know, usually she's not in real big support of, you know, putting any money, time, or effort into Halloween. But this year she said, hey, you know, why don't you go and get some stuff? And I said, great. Now I have a friend that works in a Halloween store, and to protect his identity and the store's identity, I'm not going to tell you who it is. Big place though. And he said, listen, you know, I worked with him a couple of years. I worked when I worked at a haunted house, and that's a whole other story, which I should probably tell, actually. But let's see. Let me get through this piece of the story. We'll see what kind of time I've got. I got two other stories to talk about. Anyway, so he said, listen, why don't you come visit the new house we put together, and, you know, come and buy some stuff, man. I'll give you a smoking deal. So I'm going, okay, you know, I'm all for a smoking deal. Now, most of the time when somebody says they're going to give you a smoking deal, it's usually like a 10% off coupon or something, right? So it's like, I wasn't in that big of a hurry. Well, I went up to their haunted attraction, and I checked out their store, and they had this, you know those inflatable animals? They have this inflatable cat that's crouched down like he's about to pounce on you. Thing's huge. And his head slightly moves back and forth, and it's really cool looking. It's something I had not seen before on people's lawns and whatnot. So I like having things that other people don't have. It makes me feel important. God knows I need it. Anyway, so the cat was $100, and I said, well, I bet I can get the wife to spring for this. You know, we never buy Halloween stuff. So I went back and talked to her, and that's when she said it was cool for me to buy some stuff. So I went back up, and I said, hey, you know, you were going to cut me a cool deal. How much can I get? How much for that cat? You know, and I'm thinking, you know, he'll cut $10-15 off, you know, good friend deal. And he says, let's go back and look at it. So he goes back and looks at it, and he says, how about $40? I'm going, $40? Whoa! So you're telling me there's like a 225% markup on this stuff? That's insane. And I said, $40? Sold. And I said, no, I need something for the side of the house, something big that hangs off the house, you know, a big witch or skeleton. And they have this giant, just very disturbed-looking rat. It looks like he's, like, coming out of the building, and he's all fucked up. I mean, he's like all rabid, and eyes are all insane. It's pretty scary looking. And I said, you know, wife's not going to go for that. Her idea of Halloween is, like, happy, smiley Halloween stuff. And it's like, what is that? I mean, Halloween's supposed to have scary stuff, not cute little faced pumpkins that light up and giggle and laugh at you and stuff. What's that? So, anyway, I looked at a couple of different things, and I looked at this one that was like this giant skeleton with his hands outreached, and I'm like, damn, that's cool, but it's really kind of scary. I don't think the wife would go for it. Well, he says, well, I got a witch. And I said, oh, well, let me see the witch. You know, witches can look, you know, kind of agnostic. They're scary, but, you know, they're more ugly scary than scary. Does that even make sense? I don't know. Anyway, so we found this witch. And I said, yeah, that looks good. Let's do that. And I said, what's the deal on that guy? And I looked at the box, I think it was $159 for this 12-foot giant witch. And he says, let's go 60 on that. I'm going, 60? Really? I'm like, holy hell. So that markup was like 225%. So I'm thinking to myself that this whole thing's a huge racket, and I need to get into the business. So for $100, I walked away with a giant inflatable cat and my giant ass witch. And I'll post pictures. I got some pictures of him. The cat, you obviously have to see like in motion and be in the dark and everything for it to be really cool, but I'll see what I can do. Boy, traffic is just sucking balls today. Anyway, so I got that set up for Halloween. So we're actually going to have a little something put together for Halloween. Back in the early days, we used to be able to do some pretty elaborate stuff. I remember one Halloween we taped off the whole front yard. We took pieces of saran wrap, right, and we taped them to the house so you couldn't see them at night, but in the daytime, you know, they kind of stuck out. And then we took, food coloring and corn syrup, and we put these bloody handprints on the saran wrap, and they were dripping blood. But as long as the saran wrap was there, it didn't stain the house, or it's super easy to remove. So the wife was cool with that. So it basically looked like this huge murder scene. And we took like a mannequin type thing. We had the pants and the shirt, so it looked like there was a body laying in the front yard. And I was a little thinner back then, so try to keep this into perspective. I dressed up in a Scream outfit, the ghost outfit from Scream, and I got an actual giant live butcher knife, a real butcher knife, not a butcher knife, just a regular big kitchen knife. And I soiled it up with blood and got it all dried on there so it would actually stay. And for the head of this dummy, I put a pumpkin. So I actually had something I could cleave into with this knife. Anyway, so as people would come by, I would stalk them. I would never, of course, get anywhere near them, but I would stalk them from the other side of the yellow tape in the yard. And I would follow them really close, and that freaks people out, just that. And then if somebody was, like, really scared, I would jump onto the body and straddle it, and then I would take the knife and I would pound it into the head of the pumpkin. And it makes a good, satisfying thump when you thump into it, you know, and you got to, like, hold the head down as you're stabbing into it. It got to the point to where word of mouth got around in the neighborhood, and, like, nobody walked by the house. I don't think we gave away, like, any candy after that. Nobody wanted to come up to the house. That's good stuff. That's the kind of Halloween you want. You want a Halloween where you get to scare the bejesus out of everybody and you don't have to give away any candy. That works for me. Yeah, speaking of which, let me tell that story because this is going to be the last show before Halloween, and it's only going to be appropriate here. I worked a couple of years at a haunted attraction here in Phoenix. And when I say haunted attraction, I say that because it's more like a real haunted house versus one of the kind of throw-together haunted houses. You know, these are guys that are professionals. They have professional grade effects. They have, professional level carpenters and engineers and everything else. So, I mean, they've been doing it for a long time. It's not like a haphazard thing. So it was a real haunted attraction. It's not those kind of half-ass things. Anyway, well, I've always thought being in a haunted house would be great. So when they were putting things together the first year, I went up there and I said, hey, where do you guys get the actors? Do you guys put an ad in the paper or something? Because I'd like to audition. I'd like to get in and be a haunted attraction guy. So they looked me over. I'm a big guy. I was one of the few actual, full-grown adults, which is kind of sad. But most people in haunted houses are younger kids, late teen, early or mid to late teens. And usually because it doesn't, it pays like, $5 an hour. So you don't do it for the money. It's like teaching, You don't do it for the money. You do it because it's fun. Anyway, so they uglied my ass up, and which isn't hard to do. They didn't have to apply very much makeup. It was pretty much they looked at me and said, here, you're good. No, but they put this big scar on the side of my face, and they zombied me all up, and it looked really good. I had these old, tattered clothes, and so essentially for the first year, I was the chainsaw guy at the end of the attraction. I'm the guys that chased them out. Now, that sounds like a lot more fun than it really is. First of all, the chainsaw doesn't have an actual chain on it, right? That's how you can get away with chasing people around with a chainsaw, because there's no chain on it. Also, being like one of the few adults that could wield one of these things with any sort of proficiency, that was also helpful in getting me that part. But anyway, the concept of being the chainsaw guy at the end is an outstanding deal. However, the problem with it is there's always a logistics problem. There's always some sort of mechanical interference with it. And here's what I mean by that. In order to be truly scary, you have to be able to start the chainsaw at the drop of a hat. You don't want to have the chainsaw going as they're walking out, right? You want to be able to pull that sucker live, jump out, and then scare the living bejesus out of them, right? That's the way you're supposed to do it. Well, okay, so endless numbers of problems. If it doesn't start on the first couple of pulls and you jump out with no chainsaw running, sorry, voice is going. If that doesn't work out, the scare's pretty much lost, and they laugh at you. They're all going to laugh at you. Anyway, so the chainsaw worked great about the first 4 or 5 nights. The chainsaw worked less great after that. It ran for like 2 or 3 weeks. I think it was 3 weeks. The first 5 nights were great. The chainsaw would start on every single pull. Everything was good. However, after that, it started to get a little less reliable. Then the chainsaw starter started seizing up when you try to start it. So we got to the point to where we just left the chainsaw running between scares, which reduced the amount of scares, but it also made the logistics problem a little less problematic. Of course, with the chainsaw running, though, you couldn't hear your audio cues from the other parts of the house letting you know when people were coming. So occasionally you would miss a scare because people would be walking by and you didn't hear them. But let me tell you, all the logistics problems aside, the next year I said, listen, I mean, I love the chainsaw, but the logistics behind it it didn't work out, and I was really sad that I missed a bunch of scares. I'd like to just work as a straight-up actor, no props, nothing that can go wrong. I want to be able to be the prop. So they zombied my ass up, and they put me in this graveyard scene. That was a lot more fun. The more energy and effort you can put into scaring, you don't even have to actually be an active scarer. That's the cool thing about being an actor in a haunted house is there's so many different ways to elicit scares, and everybody scares differently. And if you're a good actor, if you're not just one of those ones that are just kind of in there being blah, 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 then you know these things. Anybody who's worked in a haunted house knows exactly what I'm talking about. And it's fascinating because there's almost a science behind it. A lot of us go through haunted attractions and it's like, yeah, whatever. This isn't, there's nothing, There's nothing profound about being in a haunted house. You know, you wait for people to walk by and you go, boo. Well, it's not quite that easy. Not if you're good at it. Not if you actually take some pride in your work. There are a couple of elements of being an actor in a haunted house, which are who you are is more scary than what you do. I'll give you a prime example. When I was the Chainsaw, which, by the way, I was nicknamed the Chainsaw. Chainsaw, get it? So that still sticks. People still call me Chainsaw. But anyway, so the scare just before mine was great because people always screamed at it. So that was my audio cue to know that people were coming. And I think a lot of you can relate to this. The guy, Mark was his name. He was one of the other full-grown adults that were doing this bit with me. He was the scary clown. And this guy, believe me, I got some pictures of him. I'll post those too. The scary clown outfit that he was dressed up in was pretty fucking scary. Even if he wasn't chasing you, even if he wasn't actively trying to scare you, and even if you're not afraid of clowns, which a lot of people are, especially, and I don't mean this to sound racist, but the brothers, black men are very afraid of clowns. I don't know why. Maybe because their faces are not just white, but painted white. I don't know. Not for me to understand. But what I will tell you is, the brothers are scared shitless of clowns. In fact, so scared, they will happily sacrifice those around them to get away from the clown. The clown was in this really scary room, all painted in neon. And there was like a big, giant, scary jack-in-the-box in the middle. And the thing turned. You know, there was a handle on the box that turned. So as you were going through, you were waiting to see what was going to pop out of that jack-in-the-box. Well, nothing ever popped out of the jack-in-the-box. That was the cool part. Instead, the clown, while you're watching that jack-in-the-box intently walking by it, the clown jumped out and scared the living shit out of you. And they did everything. They made his teeth all messed up and... so sorry. They made his teeth all messed up, and they totally whacked him out. Like I said, I'll show you pictures. It's insane. But these guys would actually, grab their girlfriends, throw them at the clown, and run. Swear to God. They used to, some of them would do it at the chainsaw, too. I'd jump out, and these guys would grab their women and throw them at me and bail. And it's like, wow, and you sleep with that guy. The first time something goes bad, he's throwing your ass in front of him. What does that mean? Right? And let me tell you, when people are afraid, they lose everything. They lose shoes, they lose purses, they lose whatever they're carrying, they lose their cell phones. I mean, you wouldn't believe the amount of crap you can pick up off the ground after the fright night's over. But, yeah, so part of the science behind the haunted houses, there's all sorts of different types of scares that are inherent to any haunted house. There's like the drop box, where you're walking by a picture on a wall and the actor behind it drops it really fast and it makes a really loud smack and they jump out at you. Through the newly created window. That's a real popular one. That's one that relies on timing, right? So that's pretty straightforward. Duh. If you do it too early or do it too late, it doesn't have the same effect. So that's one piece of science. The bigger science comes from people. How do you, as an actor, without a prop, without a big scary knife, without the scary music pumping behind you, without all of the Hollywood effects, how do you be scary? Just being you. Well, it's kind of it's common sense. The best way to scare the crap out of anybody is to invade their body bubble. There's like a 3-foot comfort zone. So sorry. I haven't been able to get rid of this damn cold. There's a 3-foot zone around humans. And it's smaller depending on how close you are to the person that's near you. In other words, if you have a family member and they get within a foot or foot and a half of you, you're okay with that. But a stranger within a foot and a half, that's not cool. A stranger dressed in a scary outfit that you don't know inside of a haunted attraction, coming up within 3 feet of you, a foot of you, that makes you uncomfortable, whether or not you're afraid of the costume or not. So, invading personal space is one of the great sciences of the scare house. Getting really close to you. And sometimes you have to gauge just how close you can get away with being, right? Because if some like super hot chick's there with her boyfriend and you get too close, he might take personal offense to that. On the other hand, there are also boyfriends that are more than happy to watch their woman get terrorized by you while he laughs his ass off. And I had more than my share of those. Essentially, they will just let them twist in the wind and laugh at them while I'm backing them into a corner, while I'm trapping them, while I'm not letting them pass, and they won't go around me. It's great. There's so many little nuances of how to work a haunted house as an actor. It's absolutely great fun. I recommend anybody who's even remotely into this sort of stuff, try to find a local haunted attraction and see if you can get in and be an actor in a haunted house. The more professional it is, the bigger budget that they have and whatnot, it's going to be more fun. Because you'll have all the trappings and trimmings, and they'll have more money for makeup, that sort of thing. So they won't be leaving you to your own devices. It's like, you show up in a costume and we'll throw you in a room. You know, that's what a lot of haunted houses are. But not the good ones. So I had a good time. Both years. Like I said, the chainsaw kind of turned me away from doing that because of the prop problems and whatnot. But overall, it was still a good time. But yeah, it was quite a younger crowd there too, which is both. I'm kind of a hipper guy, you know. I try to keep up with the local and current pop culture. I watch shows that kids tend to watch, like Family Guy and South Park. So I can very much relate to the youth that I worked with, which was good. It put them right at home with me, and we had a good time. So that's one of the things that if you try to go and be an actor and you're a snooty, adult that doesn't watch Family Guy or doesn't know what's going on, who the popular bands are, who the popular actors and actresses are right now, then it's probably not going to be nearly as fun because you have to deal with these people. I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, well, if you're busy scaring people, you don't really have time to converse. Well, the best actors work together to scare. And that requires planning. That requires downtime between scares. You'll want to work out agendas, what you're going to do. Like in the graveyard, when I worked as the zombie, me and the other guy that worked in there, we actually had a full-blown routine that we could do between the two of us that would trap people, that would make them more uncomfortable. I would push them towards him, and he would, expect that, and his timing would be ready. It's a lot more than just putting on, a mask and going boo. So, something to consider next time you're at a haunted house. You can analyze it instead of being scared, which is always fun. When I go through an attraction now, I look for the production values. I look for how the actors are trained, if they're trained at all. Interesting stuff.
So I thought I'd tell you some interesting Halloween stories. Halloween's coming up. It's one of my favorite holidays because you can dress up like a total psychopath and everyone gives you a bye. You can do some crazy crap at Halloween time and get away with it. So I like that. I like dressing up and playing pretend. So I thought I'd share with you a couple of interesting stories. Sorry, I had to get a mint in my mouth. My mouth's all dry. So there are two Halloween stories in particular that I'll share with you. The first one, I'm trying to think of the actual years on these, but I know I'm going to get them wrong because I don't have a computer in front of me. When The Greatest American Hero was on TV, so you'd have to look up the year, like 82? Something like that. The Greatest American Hero went off the air in hiatus, and it came back, I think, between its second and third season. We weren't sure if it was coming back or not. Well, big fan. Love the show. And one Halloween, I begged my mom, asked my mom, I should say, then I begged, if I could be the Greatest American Hero for Halloween. Now, my mom was an adequate sewer. She was no sewing genius like some of these moms. But she busted her ass, and she managed to make me a Greatest American Hero costume. I mean, from scratch. I mean, unbelievable. She made the boots, and she made the cape, and by specifications set forth by me, because I was a huge fan of the show, she even got the emblem right on the vest, on the shirt, right? Which is actually pretty amazing, considering, we didn't have a VCR or a DVD copy of it. I did it from memory, and it was pretty damn close. So, after all that hard work, I had naturally curly blonde hair, so I looked just like William Katt from that show. So it was perfect. It was a perfect costume. And no, I wasn't fat, so shut up. I was nice and skinny, so I fit the costume just fine. So we went into this costume contest, and I never really did anything like that. But I was so proud of my Greatest American Hero suit, I really thought it was a winner. I thought it was like a first prize deal. So I got in this line with all these other kids, and I didn't win, which I thought was pretty shitty because, I really thought my mom had gone full meal deal. And frankly, it was the best costume that was out there. Everybody else was doing the same old stupid shit. At least I came up with something cool. So I remember the kid that won. He was a caveman, all right? He was a caveman with like a hatchet. It wasn't a real hatchet, of course. But his gimmick, his shtick, was the fact that he painted these gruesome eyeballs, these gruesome eyes on the back of his eyelids. So when he went for judging or he was trying to show somebody his costume, he'd like flutter his eyes, and it would look like the eyes on the back of his eyelids were blinking. This weird, creepy, reptilian, crazy look. Now, I'll give points for that, but it was the rest of the costume sucked. It was just the eyes painted on the back of the eyelids that really made it even remotely cool. And I do remember that little shit took first place, which pisses me off. I don't even think I placed. There was that many kids, and I'll be honest, man, I'm telling you, Greatest American Hero. I do remember, this was the cool part, though. I did go out trick-or-treating, of course, and I thought it was interesting because a lot of kids knew exactly who I was, which was cool, even though the show had been off the air for, 6-8 months, whatever. People knew who I was. And here was the funny part. Now, can you see me doing this? I was actually plugging the return of the show, which was coming out like a week later, sometime in November, 2 weeks later. I was actually plugging the show, by saying, hey, I'm back on the air next week, check me out. Don't forget, I'm on the air, August or October, whatever, or November, whatever it was. Do you see me out there whoring away, dressed up in my Greatest American Hero magic jammies, plugging the show? Yeah, I bet you can see that. The other Halloween story, this was back in the 80s, of course, when Boy George was like the bomb. He was number, I don't know if he was actually number one, but everybody liked Boy George. Everybody thought he was gay as a $2 bill, but, everyone liked him. Everyone liked the music. It was very popular. And so there was this big Halloween costume contest. And I asked my mom, I said, this is perfect. I can go as Boy George. I said, what an easy costume. You put on a dress and some makeup, right? You wear the hat, and you can be Boy George. Well, I got dressed in the... Hey, now. I gotta love the bus stops. Anyway, so I got dressed up in the full Boy George outfit. I went to this Halloween contest. Now, get this. Won first place for my outfit. But not because I was Boy George. I won it for dressing up as a girl. Now, what the fuck is that? I dressed up as Boy George, and I won first prize for being the best-looking girl. Now, those of you who have met me in person, seen my pictures, I'd make an ugly girl. And I don't think I was any better looking back then, so I don't know where that came from. But suffice to say, I was happy to win the prize. I was humiliated that I won the prize for being a chick. Go figure. Didn't even have boobs on. This is Shane R. Monroe, and you are listening to Car Talk. Well, it's August 21st today, and it's my mother's birthday today. My birthday on Monday. There's a lot of August birthdays surrounding me. I don't know why. Family, friends. So everybody was bored in the winter times, what I'm guessing, you know. Anyway. So, what's on today's agenda? Well, I got talking to a friend of mine about things that go bump in the night, supernatural crap. And actually, I dug out an old videotape from 1990, actually. I'm talking 18, 19 years old. And I had videotaped, I had been in the military in 1990, and I was back home on leave. And when you're a strapping young single military guy, you've got a lot of disposable income. So I had a video camera. Again, something you don't normally expect to, see somebody having, especially some kid having a video camera in 1990. But I'm actually glad I did, because when I was home on leave, I had taken a video over to a friend's house, Troy's house, actually, for those of you who know who Troy is. And his brother and his stepsister were there. Yeah, some guy just cut me off. I guess it was my own fault. Anyway. So I took a video there, but I also took a video, and everybody should have one of these, because this is fascinating. If you're a kid, you're a young kid, you're 19, 20, you're listening to this, or you have brothers or something, when you go home to visit, when you're just a kid, you've only been out of the house for a couple of years, do yourself a favor. Take a video camera, get a friend or your parents or somebody to drive you around, and videotape your hometown. Like a drive-through, like a virtual tour. I did this. I actually have this on tape, starting from the south end of Wenatchee, driving all the way up to the northern middle of the town. And I'm fascinated just watching this video, going back and seeing what's changed, which signs are different, which businesses have come and gone. There's this one giant lot that became a Safeway. And even my kid, she was from Wenatchee, she's only been here for a couple of years with us. She doesn't remember a time when there was no Safeway there. And I said, yeah, look at this. I got this on video. There was no Safeway there. She's like, that's weird. There's just this big lot. And I think that's, there's an interesting rooting of that information in your noodle. Anyway, on the same videotape, I thought, which is obviously not true because I looked, on another videotape somewhere, tucked in the closet, I have a videotape of me being over at Troy's house. And I think Troy will remember this event. Anyway, this is what led me to the whole supernatural thing. We were over there, and I can't remember who all was there, but we had a couple of girls there. I don't know if they were relatives or friends or what, which is really bizarre because I can't remember who was there. Dude, I just can't believe that dirtbag bitch just jumped in front of me. Just because you have a convertible, pal, doesn't mean you have to be a bitch. God, people suck. No reason to cut in front of me that close. Maybe I should return the favor. How would you like me to rear-end your Mitsubishi there? Huh? I'm in a grumpy mood this morning. Okay, so anyway, we were over at his place. It was a Saturday night. See, I don't know how things work anymore with kids. When I was a kid, I was never without like my friend, my best friend, my BFF, right? I was never without him. Troy and I were like inseparable for a few years. And either I was at his house or he was at my house. If we weren't in school and it wasn't a school night, I'd be at his place or he'd be at my place. It was just the natural order of things. But, thanks to like internet and Xbox Live, I think that the wanting to be, I'm sorry, I forgot text messaging. With all of these ways of staying connected without being near your friends,
which to me I think is kind of kooky. I don't think there's a huge social order for that sort of thing anymore, and it's kind of depressing. But that's not what I wanted to talk about today. So I was over at his place, and his brother had a Ouija board. And I'm assuming everyone knows what that is. Maybe some of my... everyone knows what that is. There's a little board with letters on it, and you put a little planchette on the top of it, and you put your fingers on it, and dead people are supposed to tell you things, answer your questions. You know what I'm talking about, Ouija board. Anyway, so we had one of those. We were dicking around with it. It's just nothing, of course, was happening. One of us would push the little planchette around just to be funny and freak the other guy out, and you know what I mean? So it was nothing real. At least we didn't think so. And so we're just laughing, having a good time. And somebody screams from the other room. And I'm videotaping this whole thing. So we go running, camera on record, and we're running in the other room, and on the floor between the two rooms is this little pewter figurine, those Ral Partha ones that, the geeks used to collect and hand paint and play Dungeons and Dragons with. Yeah, well, that was me. I was too poor, of course, to afford them, but other people I knew had them, and Troy's family had them. His brother, I think, had a couple, something like that. In any event, so there's one of these laying in the hallway, and one of the girls, or Brian, I can't remember who it was, one of them was screaming that it had floated out of the room. And I'm like, yeah, right. But the way that the piece was laying in the hallway, it couldn't have been thrown from the room, unless it's like that new Angelina Jolie movie, Wanted, where, they arc their arm and somehow it spins around a corner. Otherwise, there's no frickin' way that thing just got tossed into the hallway like that. So I remember picking it up, and it was like ice cold, like it had come out of the freezer. And oddly enough, and this is why the whole tape would look staged, earlier on I was walking around their bedrooms videotaping stuff, and I actually looked at that pewter figurine with the video camera. I'd actually picked it up and held it up in front of the camera so that you could see the detail on it. And that's the same figurine that ended up in the hallway. Now, based on that concept, if you were to see this video without any explanation, you totally would believe that it was staged and I'm full of crap. So I understand how videotapes that may be real, UFOs, Bigfoot sightings, whatever, Loch Ness Monster, any of these things could be easily dismissible by, standard people who've never actually experienced anything funky. Totally. I mean, looking back at this video, it would be totally obvious that it looked like it was set up. But anyway, so I remember picking this figurine up, and it's ice cold. Well, the same figurine had just been in the room like an hour ago. So either somebody, to mess with us, ran it downstairs and froze it and then brought it back up, or something legitimately weird happened. And I'll tell you what, the feeling in the air, I don't know what you'd call it, not the electricity, but there was a feeling of something awry in the air. That's all I can tell you about it. But the figurine couldn't have been thrown out of the room. Somebody could have walked out and placed it out there, I guess. All I'm saying is it begged to ask many, many questions. We were all freaked out enough that the Ouija board was off the table, literally and figuratively. We were done playing with the Ouija board. That was it. It was over. So there's one of my tales of the supposed supernatural. Now I'll tell you the other tale. And this still creeps me out. This, take it for what it's worth. I don't make this stuff up. But it's been a while. So there's certain elements of the story that I may not completely have cognizant memory of. But suffice to say, here's what happened. When I was about 13, my parents bought a piece of property that had two houses on it. One was this little tiny itty-bitty house that had room for like nobody in it. And that was in good repair. There was another house on the property that had been burned. Almost the entire inside of the home had been burned into nothing. I don't even know how the house was still standing. But apparently the foundation and the frame, the core frame of the home was still in good repair, which means it didn't have to be torn down or something. I don't remember the particulars of it. My dad's was a general contractor. He does pretty much everything. He can do electrical, he can do framing, he can do drywalling, whatever. I mean, he can build a house. He built he and my mother's house from the ground up. Plumbing, everything. So, jack of all trades. So they bought this property with the idea that they would gut the house out and rebuild it while they lived in the other house. Now, what did that leave for me? Well, unfortunately, it was cramped for a little while in this little tiny house. But as soon as they got one of the bedrooms and the bathroom completed and finished in the other house, they let me move in there. Now, the other house and the two houses were like, you could literally throw a rock and break a window in the other house. So it's not like they were down the street. But they were across like a little cul-de-sac thing. They were across the way from each other. And so, I was pretty happy being a 13-year-old basically living in his own house. That was pretty cool, which allowed me to do all sorts of things that a regular, regular teenager couldn't get away with. Fortunately, I was a good kid and not, a partier, drinker, smoker, drug user. I would have had all sorts of creepy opportunities. Suffice to say that, aside from a little bit of software piracy, that's about the worst thing I did in that house. But I do remember one night laying in bed, and it helps to have a diagram of my bedroom at the time, but it's not essential. My bed was against the wall facing the door. And I was laying in bed one night. It was late, and I was laying on my back with my head kind of, looking towards the wall. So if you can imagine, the doorway, and I didn't even have a door on there, which is even more funny. I didn't even have a door on this bedroom yet. I could see the doorway with my peripheral. I mean, the very edges of my peripheral, because of the way my head was turned towards the wall. And I was laying there, trying to get to sleep. There's a guy next to me brushing his teeth. This is freaking hilarious. Damn it, where's my camera? I gotta have a picture of this guy freaking brushing his teeth. Hang on a second, I'll get back to the story. Where's my fucking camera? Damn it. Alright, he's gone. Son of a bitch. Alright, anyway, well, there's a guy brushing his teeth next to me while he's driving. Anyway, so I'm sitting there, and I get this overwhelming sense of wrong. I want to be melodramatic and say that it felt like evil. But the more I think about it, it felt like there was something coming. And it wasn't pleasant. It wasn't a good feeling, like you're on your way to a theme park and you can see the roller coasters and stuff in the distance and you know it's coming and it's a good thing. This was not a good thing. But I hesitate to use the word evil, especially the more years that go by between now and then. If it had been evil, something bad may have happened. And that's not exactly the case. But in any event, bear with me here. So, I'm sitting there in the bed. My head's turned slightly to the wall. I can only see the door in my peripheral. And you know how sometimes you don't want to see something that's bad and you won't look? That's how I started off feeling. It's like, if something's coming, I don't know if I necessarily want to see it. Right? So I had my head turned, and I wasn't eager to turn and look. I felt it coming closer. I don't know how you can feel something that's not in the room, that you can't see, how you feel, quote, quote, it coming closer. But it did. It felt like it was coming closer. So I'm laying here, and the closer it gets, I start sweating. I mean, I'm sweating like a pig. And I can start hearing the heart beating in my ears, and I'm starting to get freaked out. But again, I'm not turning and looking. As this thing gets closer and closer to me, I'm suddenly like frozen. I can't move. And my heart, I swear to God, that for a short period of time, my heart actually stopped. I was frozen completely. I couldn't scream. I couldn't speak. I couldn't turn my head. I couldn't move any piece of my body. And my heart stopped beating. At that moment, something walked into my room. Something, I don't even know if you'd call it humanoid, but if it walked in, it had to have legs, right? All I could see in my peripheral was a dark shape. It came into my room. And here's the part where I start dismissing it as a dream. First of all, I've never had a dream this realistic, okay? Ever. Not before and not since. So if it was a dream, it was once in a lifetime. Here's the part where I start dismissing it as a dream, though. The thing sat down on my bed. Do you know how it feels when somebody sits on a bed next to you and it squishes, the bed squishes down where they're sitting? And the contour of the bed changes a little bit. Dude, I was in like a twin bed or something, right? It's not like I was on a California King. But I felt the bed squish next to me. This whatever came and sat down on my bed and was, I assume, observing me or looking at me. No, it didn't touch me. I didn't ever feel it touching me. But for some unknown amount of time, this thing sat there. It sat there and watched me or something. And it got up and it left. And all of a sudden I was free. I could move my head. I could breathe. And I was just in a pool of sweat. I mean, like nobody's business. I've never been that sweaty. And I was freed, and my heart started beating again, and everything was as it should be. Totally freaked me out. Now, that's the first part of the story. The second part of the story, you're going to have to wait for another car talk, because I'm almost at work. I started a little bit late. Suffice to say, there's something that almost corroborates what happened in there. And it came from a completely independent source. And I'm going to tell you about it next car talk. And I think you will agree that if nothing else, it's an interesting story. Even, I'm not making it up, but whether or not it's explainable, that's something different. In any event, this is Shane R. Monroe with Car Talk saying we'll see you next time. This is Shane R. Monroe, and you are listening to Car Talk. Well, I promised you part 2 of that creepy-ass story that I told on the last Car Talk, so I'm getting myself out early this morning to make sure that I get time to finish the story. So as you recall from my last Car Talk, I experienced when I was, I'm trying to remember exactly how old I was, 13, 14-ish, I experienced what I still consider to be an evil entity visiting me in my bedroom. Well, I'm not going to go into full details about the circumstances because that was in the last show. Suffice to say that I never told anybody, by the way, certainly not my parents, about the demon until many, many years later. And I still didn't tell my parents about it. It's one of those things, you tell like your best friend and nobody else, right? That's a BFF story. So anyway, in 1988, September, I went into the Navy. I went through boot camp. I went through my A school, and then I went into the nuclear power program. Now, I don't know how many of you might be listening, but the nuclear power program is truly insane. I'm going to segue off of my story for just a minute because this is a tale that I want everybody to know about, especially you young guys who might be going in the Navy and get tricked into the nuclear power program. First of all, the nuclear power program is it's either 24 or 26 weeks. I can't remember which one it was now. Basically, you go into the Navy. You go through 8 weeks of boot camp. You go through, I think, 12 weeks of A school, which is like when you go into the nuclear program, let me explain this because this gets complicated. When you go to the recruiter or whatever, and they say, listen, you're a real smart cookie, we can get you in the nuclear power program, and they just start shoving money and rank at you. It's like, well, you'll get out of boot camp as an E3. When you finish A school, you'll be an E4, blah, blah, blah. You're going to get this signing bonus of tons of cash. We'll shower you with money, blah, blah, blah. So it's like very enticing. They make you take this test, a nuclear pre-qualification test. Now, I've never been a strong math, physics, science kind of guy. And I told him that. I said, listen, I took as little math as possible. I never took physics or chemistry or any of that other stuff. And they're like, don't worry about it. Just take the test and, we'll see what happens. So I took this test, and I scored like 2 points under the passing grade. Not bad, considering I didn't know anything. And they said, well, listen, you didn't pass it, but I think we can push some buttons and get the test waived. It's like, well, why would I even take the damn test then? So they got this waived, and I got into the nuclear power program. Now, the nuclear field contains 3 different job ratings or types: mechanic, electrician, and an electronics technician. Naturally, being the kind of guy I am, I wanted to go for an electronics technician. That'd be more my style. I can't even spell wrench, let alone turn one. So what they do is they tell you flat out they don't guarantee what job you're going to get. That's going to be decided by your skills in your A school. So I went to A school, and they said, you'll never be an ET. So guess what you're going to be? You're going to be a nuclear mechanic. I'm going, okay, well, it's still nuclear. It's still a lot of money. It's still cool. And so I got to go through a shorter A school than the ETs had to go through. But suffice to say, I went through, I think, 8 to 12 weeks of A school. Then you go into power school, and there was absolutely nothing to get me prepared for this. I want to tell you right now, I consider myself a smart guy. I had a rudimentary IQ test taken when I was, how old was I? 12. And, I scored a 140, so I don't think I'm a dumbass. But nothing prepared me for what the onslaught was going to be in nuclear power school. They say that next to like MIT, this is the most difficult school in the country, and they're not kidding. I think there's a number of different reasons why it's so difficult. First off, is everything is confidential. Everything is classified. Everything about nuclear propulsion is classified. So you can't take any work out of the school. You can't do your homework at home. You can't study. You can't get tutoring. You can do nothing outside the walls of the nuclear power school. So that's the first kind of, you mean I can't go to the library, I can't go back to my bunk, my barracks, I can't do any of that stuff? No. If you have a technical manual of any kind in your possession, it has to be in the school. Now, school starts early. I wanted to say it started at like 6 or 7 in the morning. Now, I know you're thinking, well, that's like an early college class. Okay, granted. But school would go till 4 to 5 o'clock at night. And you're going, okay, well, that's like a regular job, 8, 9 hours, no big deal. And the only breaks that you got during the day was a 15-minute break in the morning, a 30-minute lunch break, 30 or 45 minutes. I want to err on the side of caution and say 45, but I'm pretty sure it was 30. And then you got a 15-minute break in the afternoon. None of this politically correct 50 minutes learning on the hour only 10-minute break. If anyone's ever gone to like a Microsoft school or anything like that, that's pretty much the way it is. 50 minutes of learning, 10 minutes break. 50 minutes of learning, 10 minutes break. Ha! Not the case in power school. Now, I know what you're thinking still. You're thinking, okay, that's strenuous, but it's not unfathomable. Well, listen. Let me tell you how I learn. I learn through lecture. I listen and I absorb. Right? I'm not a big note taker. Never took notes in high school. Never had to, for that matter. As long as they lectured on the topic, I didn't really have to take notes, and I was good to go. There is no such thing as lecture in power school. Power school consisted of you with a stack of notebooks on your desk. When I say stack, I'm not kidding. And here's what happens. From the time the bell rings until you go on break, and then when you come back from break until the next break, you take notes. And literally, no kidding, these instructors, I guess you could call them instructors, they're really nothing more than dialogue writers, would sit, there are 3 chalkboards in front of the classroom, 3. While he's writing on, let's say he writes on the first one, you have to transcribe them exactly. As he moves to the next board, he's already erasing the first board, so he's ready to go back to it. Imagine 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. And you're literally transcribing notes for, what did I come up with, 8, 9 hours a day? That's what you do all day. Then you're assigned about 4 hours of homework every night. Now remember, you can't go home to do the homework. You have to do it in class. Now, if you're really, really quick and you have a really strong physics background, I knew a couple of guys that were like that. Not just smart. Smart wasn't enough. You had to have the background. Because if you needed help in any sort of way, so let's say that homework was actually 2 hours that they'd assign every night, but if you needed any help at all, it required that you waited in line to get assistance. And so you could take a 2-hour piece of homework and turn it into 4 hours. Now, if your grade starts to slip, and when I say slip, I'm talking around between a B and a C. If your grade starts to slip, they put you on mandatory study time. So instead of them saying, we recommend that you study for 30 hours a week. Now, that's study on your own, 30 hours a week, not class time. Study on your own. So in addition to the 50-hour school week, you're talking about 30 more hours a week of independent study. Now, if your grades slip, if you show any weakness at all, they put you on mandatory study time, which means you have to sign in and out. And, of course, like I said, you can't do it anywhere but in the school building. So what this equates to is you don't see sunlight anymore for, 12 weeks. Technically, I think it was a 24-week program, because I remember it being broken into 12-week segments. The first 12 weeks is what they called the light side, or the light side, which means you actually saw some sunlight because, you got to go to lunch. Apparently, when you get to the dark side of Power School, you really don't see sunlight at all. Literally, for real. I mean, I'm not just being melodramatic. You don't see sunlight. So, Nuclear Power School, as you can understand already, is a huge deal to get through. That's why they make so much cash. It's because they have to go through that. Now, I haven't even told you the best part. They look at integrity as the highest form of achievement in nuclear power, the nuclear power program. They don't want because, you screw up in the nuclear power field and you lie or don't tell the truth or fabricate something or don't do what you're supposed to do, right? Bad things can happen. It's nuclear. So they don't want anybody in the nuclear power program that has even the inkling of impropriety. So integrity is the number one watchword. Now let me tell you how this works. It's not just a matter of not getting caught, right? Because everybody does stuff they're not supposed to do. It's the way it is. They are looking to kick you out. They want to kick you out of the nuclear power program because what they want at the end are the perfect nuclear soldiers, right? The perfect nuclear sailors, I should say. So there is no such thing as a little white lie or anything of the sort. If you are caught in any sort of issue, impropriety, you are kicked out immediately. There's no board of review. There's no your side of the story. When you're caught doing anything that they don't want you to do, you are booted from the program. You get stripped of all your privileges, everything. You're gone. Boom. Done. The attrition rate is like 90%, something like that, if I remember right. 86, 90%, something like that. The attrition rate is so high that they have to shovel people through that school in a funnel because they can't get anybody, they can't get a huge number coming out at the end. Of course, I found out a lot of this later on. So let me give you an example of what they consider integrity. One of the rules is you're not allowed to cook in your barracks room. We had 3-man barracks room. They were like little hotels almost. They were pretty cool, actually. But the rule was you're not allowed to cook in your room. One sailor got caught, get this, you know those little plates that you put your coffee on to heat them up, the hot plates? I'm not talking about a Bunsen burner here. I'm talking about a little hot plate. They've got these ones that run off USB power now. We're not talking about open flame item here. They caught this guy, because they have room inspections, by the way. They don't trust you. So they found this guy's coffee warmer and said, you're cooking in your barracks room, get out. No explanation, no, don't let it happen again, get out. Get this, both of his roommates were kicked out too, because they didn't tell on him. As soon as they said, basically, your roommate has a hot plate in his room for warming up his coffee, yeah, get out. You're done. You didn't tell on him. So all three of them got booted out because one of them had a hot plate in his bedroom, in his barracks room. That's what I'm talking about. The other part about it, now imagine living under that scrutiny along with everything else that I've already told you. Let me add the final little meat to it before I get on with this. The last little slice of this, I was 18, 19, right? You're teenagers, right? What seems to follow teenagers like, flies to shit? Yes, acne, zits, blackheads, whiteheads, you name it. I mean, I was no different than any other teenager. I had acne. Well, apparently, gamma radiation enters the body through open lesions. So, acne technically is considered an open lesion. So they send you, if they find that you have an acne issue, they send you to this guy we nicknamed Little Hitler. This guy even talked like Hitler. He loved to fuck with nuclear power students. That was his ultimate goal in life. This guy was about 5'1". He had turned down, get this, an admiral position on numerous occasions because he loved his job. This guy's job was to treat your acne. Now, how did they do this? Well, you go in, they evaluate you, which is humiliating. They make you take off your shirt, they inspect your back, and they give you a regimen based on how bad your acne is. The regimen ranged from tetracycline, which pretty much, if you were there, you got tetracycline. And if you really had a bunch of lesions like I did, they prescribed you Retin-A. Now, Retin-A, I think Retin-A back in 1989, I think Retin-A was still experimental. I don't think it was available for public consumption at that point. So I thought they were using us as guinea pigs. Standard military crap, right? Now, you were supposed to put this on your acne twice a day. Now, I want you to tell me how you put acne cream, this Retin-A, on your acne-laden back by yourself. Well, the answer, of course, let me get back to Little Hitler first. This guy is amazing. So he lines your ass up. You get in this line and you're all standing there with your shirts off. You look like you're at a gay bar. And this guy's walking up and down like you're standing inspection at ranks. And he looks you over and he's like, Retin-A, tetracycline, Retin-A. Right, that was like your first day there, right? He goes through the whole the rigmarole. And then, so then you go back every single Wednesday. By the way, that took 2 hours of class time. So every Wednesday you automatically lost 2 hours of class to go see Little Hitler. And let me tell you something. When you're already struggling, 2 hours is much more than you can afford to lose. So you go there, and he takes your bottle of tetracycline, these big, tall prescription bottles. These things are horse pills. He takes them, and he shakes the bottle like a goddamn wine connoisseur would shake a glass of Chablis, right? And he's like, you have missed 4 doses of your tetracycline. And you're going, how the fuck did he know that? This guy was so good. He didn't have to take your pills out and count them. Remember, they don't trust you. They're looking for a reason to bust you. So they don't dump your tablets out and count them. This guy could tell with 100% accuracy, looking at your bottle and shaking it like a fucking wine connoisseur, how many tablets you'd missed over the course of the week. This was one time when he gave you a chance. He's like, you will take your tetracycline or you will be out. So the next week, so what basically ended up happening, because everybody misses a pill, dude, and you have to miss pills because you're out of your mind at this point, man. You're like 5 weeks into power school. You're stressed. You're unbelievably overworked. You haven't slept. You're going to forget to take tetracycline. So it started off that Wednesday morning before you go to school, you count your pills and make sure you shit canned as many pills necessary to make sure that your count was right. But this guy was phenomenal. So he'd shake this bottle. You have missed 5 doses. Right, then he would inspect you. And again, you're at the gay bar. You're all there with your shirts off. And he's looking you up and down. He comes up to me and he looks at my face and he says, you have been picking your acne, which you're not allowed to do because picking your acne leads to bigger open lesions or something like that. I don't know. It doesn't matter. He told you not to do it. So if you do it, you're violating a direct order. You're kicked out of the nuclear program. And I said, no, sir, I haven't been. He's like, yes, you've been picking your shits. White cotton gloves. And I'm like, white cotton gloves? And I was wondering, I saw a bunch of kids running around the campus with white cotton gloves on. I thought it was a Michael Jackson thing. What am I supposed to think, right? White cotton gloves. So you're supposed to wear these white cotton gloves 24 hours a day. They're supposed to show blood or pus or whatever it is when you pick your zits. Now, nobody wears white cotton gloves 24 hours a day, but I guarantee you everybody in your chain of command knew you were supposed to wear white cotton gloves. So when you were at school, when you were at chow, wherever you were that somebody in any sort of position of power could see you, you wore white cotton gloves. Yes, you wiped your ass with white cotton gloves on. You took a shower with white cotton gloves on. Yes, you even beat off with white cotton gloves on. That part wasn't that bad. But anyway, so suffice to say, what really turned out to be is when you shaved, which, by the way, you had to shave every day, when you shave your face, you cut the tops off your acne. Everyone knows that. Well, little Hitler would have nothing of that, even with the white cotton gloves. He inspected the white cotton gloves. I forgot to mention that. And basically he would you're still picking your acne. You're not wearing your gloves. If you look inside my record somewhere, it actually says, in 72-point font, handwritten, it says white cotton gloves, and it's got little exclamation points on it. It's too damn funny. It's funny now. It wasn't funny then. So by about how far did I make it? I was out by week 8. 6th week, I guess. By the 6th week, I was absolutely positive that there was some evil entity stalking me. That's right. I was so mentally disturbed at that point. I believed that there was something following me. I couldn't see him, but there was something looking to get me. Some dark, evil force was looking to get me. It was almost a physical manifestation of this, I don't know what you'd call it, this mental disjointment. Whatever it was, I was pretty messed up. I actually kept journals at the time, and I went back and looked at them. I don't think I have them anymore, which is too bad. I'd love to read you some passages out of it. But I kept a journal, and I went back and I looked at them man, I was mentally disturbed. I mean, I was mentally racked at that point in time. And I remember calling my mom because I needed to tell her. I needed to tell somebody. That's not something you told anybody nearby because they'd kick your ass out for that sort of thing. So I called my mom, and I talked to my mom, and I said, man, I really feel like there's something stalking me. It's totally freaking me out. I'm so overwhelmed. I can't even think straight. And she goes, something stalking you? That's kind of creepy. And I said, what do you mean? And she goes, well, something happened at the house the other day that was really weird. Now, just so that we catch up here, the house that I lived in when the demon visited me, that house, my parents had finally finished that house, and they were living there. Okay, you need that piece of the story. So I'm like, what are you talking about? She says, I was outside. This was September, October. If I did the math, I could figure it out. It's fall in Wenatchee. Okay, that's the point I'm trying to make with the date time here. It's fall in Wenatchee, which is not warm. It's not like fall here where it's still 90 degrees. Fall means you wear a coat, a jacket. So my mom told me, and I had never told my mom about the demon story, okay? So that's first thing off the table. She said I was out gardening in front of the house. You know, she had this garden in front of the house, flower garden. And she said I was sitting there gardening, and this old man came up to me. and was staring in the front window of the house, like just staring there, like totally transfixed. And my mom had been a the old folks home, retirement home, where they put the old folks, convalescent center. That's the word I was looking for. So she'd worked at this convalescent center as a nurse, so she was used to dealing with, slightly doddering old people. So she was a good person for this guy to come up to. And he said he just kept there staring in the window, didn't even acknowledge my mom. And my mom's like, "Sir, can I help you?" And the guy kind of looked at her with his mouth hanging open and said, "I saw them do it in there. I saw it." And my mom is like, "You saw what? What did you see?" And he didn't say anything. And my mom was kind of freaked out at this point, of course, right? So she went looking for my dad, which I don't think was on the property at the time. But she came back and the guy was gone. This not big property here, so it's like the guy just kind of disappeared. My mom went looking for this guy. Couldn't find him. So she called the cops. This guy apparently was dressed like in his shorts and a T-shirt. And my mom was concerned that this old guy, was being exposed to the elements. He was going to get sick or die or something. So she called the cops, gave them a physical description of the guy, and said, this guy is a little bit out of his mind. He's seeing weird things inside my house, and he just disappeared, and I'm worried about him because he wasn't dressed appropriately for the weather, blah, blah, blah. And so the police came out and looked for the guy. Never found him. But I'll tell you, when she said what he said, and I'm paraphrasing because I can't completely remember what it was, but I saw them do it, or they did it in there, or something like that, implying that something bad is what my mom implied. Something bad happened in that house. So take that for whatever it's worth. I'll tell you what. And then I said to her, "I never told you about the demon story, did I?" And she goes, "What demon story?" And I told her about what had happened in there, what had happened, and she totally wigged out. She's like, "This is the creepiest thing ever. Maybe it's time to sell this property." And it's like, well, it only came once. I never saw it again. But yeah, my mom was pretty freaked out when she heard about the demon thing in conjunction with her own story. So I don't know. I don't know what to say about the story. A lot of the listeners wrote in saying that there's something called sleep paralysis that causes exactly what I was describing, and et cetera, et cetera. And that's very possible. I'm not one of those people that are willing to believe in supernatural stuff if science provides a perfectly good explanation. But suffice to say that the whole experience creeped me out. And I'll tell you what, if any of you are thinking about going into nuclear power in the Navy, make sure you have a very strong physics background and you understand what you're getting into, because I consider myself a level-headed, smart guy, and level-headed and smart's not enough to make it in there. All right, gang, I am at work. I have to get off of here. I will post you a new show, and I guess that's it. This is Shane R. Monroe for Car Talk saying we'll see you next time.